Holla ballers, what's going on? It's Preacher. We're in the Proving Grounds again, and now we're doing the Healer Gold Medal. I'm rocking on my Priest. It's one of the characters that I copied over. Worth noting, my Priest is in full DPS gear. What does that say about this challenge? Not much, really. This is one of the, well, it's by far the easiest of all the Proving Ground challenge modes so far to get a gold medal in. Really not difficult at all. This is my second ever go. I found this one, yeah, pretty easy. Pretty easy. You've got the simple rules of this one. You have a 5-man party to look after. Those are your bros. Got to keep them alive. Pretty simple. You have a tank. You have a rogue. A little funny moment is when your rogue goes into stealth, he does actually show us disconnected. I would have liked Blizzard to troll a little bit with one of the DPSs disconnecting and see how you coped with being a man down, but sadly not the case. It's not bad. It's not bad. It is easy, but it's not bad. It's basically a huge lesson in mana management. It's more or less in mana management than anything else. As you can see, there are some debuffs that are going to pop up. They have one debuff, particularly the magic debuff, which is sort of a water globule. Very obvious to see players that have that, and you also get the debuff on your unit frames. I've got it on myself there, and that's your dispellable debuff. It gives you 6 seconds to dispel it before it explodes. I have no idea how much damage it does. I dispelled it as soon as I saw the debuff. But it's always nice to see that Blizzard is trying to get people to dispel. I went holy on this one, purely out of fun. I like holy, and I essentially stayed in the single target chakra for the entire duration. I found it the most easiest. It's a great lesson, a little technique and a little tip for you to do this is it's a wonderful lesson in using your mana efficient spells. I will point out this wonderful claw effect you can see on our rogue right now. That is a debuff that expires as soon as the target is healed to full, or so it says on the tooltip. A 90% will get the job done. Quite frankly, 90% will get the job done and it will disappear. Always nice to see whether or not people are going to pick up on different styles of debuffs, maybe give them the mouse over and see exactly how they work. Always wonderful to see that they can't just try and out-heal it, which tends to be most what basic healers do, is try and out-heal everything. This one doesn't work that way. You can spam heal it all you want, but if the longer you leave that debuff on there, the more mana it's going to cost you, and so on and so forth, and it just gets gradually worse. What I didn't pay enough attention to is exactly what the ads do. I don't think they do much of anything. Some of them do a little bit of AoE, some of them obviously do that claw effect, and some of them do the lava surge that you can see there, just throwing random AoE around, and you can see that some of your DPSs will go ahead and they will stand in the damage, especially the hunters. Again, a little laugh by Blizzard there that the huntards go and stand in stuff. What I will say is it does allow you to use a little bit of the extra tools in your toolbox, although they're not exactly necessary. So I went with Siphene for this one because it just seemed like a hell of a good idea. All these mobs are CCable, you can fear them, you can do all kinds of stuff. I occasionally just dropped a Siphene down anywhere near the mobs. Basically just to, you know, CC them a little bit. More CC, the less damage taken. And that was about it. That was my reasoning behind it. Overall, it's about not stressing out. It's really about keeping on top of what's going on, using your lowest mana costing spells, and just dispelling and keeping things nice and hasty. What I did think was a nice touch is the ads will spawn in all different areas of the room. This means that the healer will come under certain pressure. You can see I have aggro there. Getting aggro is a big part of this Proving Ground in the Gold Medal Challenge, is you will get aggro a lot of times. It's going to happen pretty regularly. As a priest, of course, I've got Fade. Healers have other different ways of dealing with this stuff. It's something, it's balanced, is what I'll say. It's not easier because I'm a priest by any means. This would have been easily as good just to prevent absorbs. I might have paid more attention to what the mobs do, maybe, but unlikely. It's a straight up healer fiasco. Occasionally was a little bit worried dropping down to lowish mana. What I will say is that I basically had to ensure I had pretty much top-notch mana for the last wave. The last wave is particularly tough in terms that you could drain a whole mana bar pretty damn quickly. So you'll see I do a lot of jumping around. Now what I would like to have seen is a bigger emphasis on helping with DPS. I think that would have been really good in the Gold Challenge, is to have it so that the mobs can't be killed by the NPCs exactly as the next wave spawns, which is pretty much the case. They are timed in a way that the NPC DPS will be able to cope with this situation and kill all the ads off as the next wave occurs. I would have really liked to have seen, say, a little bit of a push towards healers contributing some sort of DPS. Too many healers do what I'm doing now, in a 5-man especially, is they tend to run around not doing anything. I'm doing that because of just mana. I had no spirit on this gear. It's all from reforging away crit and mastery, any spirit I had. Essentially, I was just sort of derping around to make sure I had good mana, trying not to cast as much as possible, using as much as my holy word as possible just to keep on top of things. This basic AoE, and then, oh look, he's got the claw, I'm going to give him a nice big heal, and that should sort him out. And that was essentially my whole game plan going into this. I would say that talents-wise, just be wary of picking things that cost a lot of mana. This gear is scaled, so your gear, although I have much less spirit than probably most of you will have doing this, I will say that because the gear is scaled, it's always make sure you pick your talents that have much less mana. On my first go, I rocked Cascade. Cascade costs around 30,000 mana. I think it's about 27k off the top of my head. I could be wrong. It was a little bit too expensive for what I needed it for. As you can see, the AoE damage is pretty trivial, really. It's not exactly big, scary stuff. If you keep on top of everything, use your Mindbender on cooldown or whatever your mana regeneration ability is, you're not going to run into a lot of trouble with this stuff, and therefore it's pretty basic on that level. I would have just loved to have seen a less of a focus on sort of mana management. At least that was the challenge for me. For you guys, the challenge might be different, but if you don't have mana issues, I can't see how the gold medal would be in any way remotely challenging at all. Healing, putting out enough HPS, certainly not the problem. Using mana efficient spells, easy mode. It's all pretty basic stuff. There's not much else to say on this one, really. I would have just loved to have seen a bit of an emphasis on contributing some DPS. I think that is the only thing that was missing from it. Overall, it's kind of dissatisfying, the healer one. Perhaps it's due a revamp. Using more tools would have been nice. It would have been nice. I did use my Psyfiend every now and again, but you can see it's sitting off cooldown right now. My Divine Star is sitting off cooldown. And a lot of the time, I wasn't actually doing anything. Is that the lesson we're supposed to take away from this? Is healers should be trying to think about their mana in terms of not doing anything? We seem to have worked so hard to get away from that. We seem to have put a lot of effort into making sure healers can be doing something all the time. Whereas this Proving Ground seemed to give the opposite impression for me. It was very much a case of, well, the best strategy here is to actually just not do much of anything and just derp around and wait for mobs to die. Which isn't that great. I could have contributed some DPS out of choice, but it certainly wasn't necessary. You can see it dropping a Psyfiend in the middle there just to power out some fears, reduce that incoming damage a little bit. Perhaps that's just what they're trying to teach people, something that might be a bit second nature towards myself, is teach people that they can do that. You know, you can interrupt, you can do various things. You can see I've got aggro there, quick fade, move towards the tank. There are lessons to be learned here. You certainly want to be thinking about staying near the tank. You certainly want to be thinking about the fact that adds can come from anywhere and looking around, thinking about your position. You can see I take a position that's kind of in one corner with the tanks in the middle. Your tank is relatively decent. Like I said, some of the ideas of the hunter standing and taking a lot more damage. If any member of your party dies, by the way, your gold challenge is over. You have to keep all of the members alive throughout the entire duration. I would have liked to have seen stuff like the tank not being too great and just leaving a mob on you for a little bit of time. Maybe they don't react as quickly as I would have liked. Stuff like certain characters disconnecting. I actually thought that was kind of cool, although it just turns out that when the rogue goes into stealth, he appears as disconnected on my unit frames. If it was a case of, yeah, this is what can actually happen in a 5-man with a little bit of difficulty, is just to add those little elements in. It would have been a lot more fun. Out of all of them, yes, it was the easiest, but it was also the least fun because of that, because it was relatively simple in comparison to, say, the damage one, which is entertaining to say the least. There's a little bit of pre-planning. You have to think about your waves. You have to think about what's going on. I don't think this represented enough stress on a healer. I would have liked to have seen some really stressful AoE moments that perhaps I could have done something about. I really like to have seen that. Maybe I should definitely have used this ability here, this ability there. You see moving towards the tank there so he can actually get his aggro. The tank didn't react, so perhaps that is an element in there, but I'm just naturally not doing it. But this is what it is. This is what it is. I kept my light well down, did my stuff, did the business, and it was no big deal at all. So I'm going to let this one play out. Watch the end of the video, and there's some links there to see the damage one, the tanking one, and all that kind of good stuff. Enjoy, guys. See you later.